All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is the happy re-recording of our Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast that unfortunately got lost to the aether of Zoom. But we're back. We're re-recording, and we're very excited to do it again because we just love Buffy that much. Again, I'm Tori. Here is my fancy mug of the week. It's my last name, Russo.
Aww.
Yeah, it's super Italian. My uncle had these made a while back. Everything. This is the Russo family crest. I don't really know what that means other than we have it, and it's on everything. So super fun Italian fact.
Super
All right,
fancy.
I'm gonna pass over to Brenda.
Hi everyone. So my mug of the week this week is my Doctor Who mug that I got at Comic-Con last year. You can see the date, San Diego 2019. Ignore the lipstick stains, but yeah, so it has the 13th Doctor along with her companions. You have Ryan, Graham, and then Yaz over here. Jen knows that, so I've only been to Comic-Con once because we can never get tickets. And one of my coworkers actually had a spare ticket. And she's like, look, we can try and get you in. And so we went through all the legal, maneuverings to make sure that I could actually go. So I did. And the entire time I was there, I was just looking for Doctor Who merch because I was so excited that 13 was a thing, right? And so when I saw this mug, I usually like my mugs a little bigger, right? This is tiny because I drink a lot of, I used to drink a lot of coffee. Now I drink a lot of tea. But I like my mug to be a little heftier. But this was just so cute that I'm like, I'm going to splurge and I'm going to get myself a mug. So I did.
Aw, yay, that's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, my name's Jennifer, and this is my mug of the week. This is a rendition of Alice in Wonderland.
I like that.
This is actually a gift from Brenda and Christine. They went to the Huntington Library without me.
To be fair, it's actually just for me.
Okay. Well, still, you went without me.
You were working, and it was my birthday.
You know what? You went out without me. I'm kidding.
Hey, you would have asked for the day for my birthday, but you didn't. But you couldn't.
Whatever. Anyways, it's really cute. It's it has a saying inside. It says it's always I don't know if you can see it. It's always tea time. So it's actually really cute. I actually saw that you can buy these not on outofprint.com. So if they usually sell will run you about $12. So if you guys really like this mug, you can always go there. This is not an advertisement, but this is a really cute mug for that reason.
But it can be if they send us free stuff.
Very true.
All I heard is I overpaid at the Huntington. So that was nice to hear. Right now.
Oh no. Well, as Tori said, this is a re-recording. So we're actually recording outside of our normal schedule. We tend to want to record on Sundays. But this is a Saturday for us. So we just want to give you a brief update on our week. We want to save that for tomorrow. So Tori, how was your week so far?
Week has been pretty okay. Pretty smooth. Nothing too much to complain about. I'm almost finished watching Merlin. I'd never watched it before, and I started at season 1 on Netflix, and I'm on episode 10 of season 5 right now. So I'm right there. It's been a pretty fun watch. So I've been doing that. I've been playing a lot of Fire Emblem, all that fun stuff. Trying to keep together as much as possible, experimenting with different cooking recipes and concoctions, playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons with some friends, all that good stuff. What have you ladies been up to?
Speaking of the cooking, I've been making a lot of cookies. This last time I kind of overdid the butter because as I was measuring out the butter, it hit me. It hit me after I made the cookies that I was measuring in solid, right? Not the melted. And I needed half a cup of melted butter. So I got half a cup out and I melted that. And then I didn't even think and I just poured it in there. When I dumped it, I'm like, oh. They came out a little crunchy. They inflated quite a bit, a lot more than I anticipated, but they were fine. They were good.
Okay.
In terms of TV shows, it's just watching a lot of, like, just catching up on TV mostly.
Okay. Nice.
How about
Have
you?
I have not been cooking. I've been doing a lot of like um cold like sandwiches like these past 2 days because it's been really hot. Like it's in the 90s nowadays, like 90s. So it's I have my trusty fan next to me. So I've been doing a lot of like cold cuts and like a lot of like tuna sandwiches just because that feel like with salt and vinegar chips that
Yeah.
feels like really good and on a hot day.
I made soup
Um
yesterday.
huh?
I made soup yesterday.
I mean, I'm waiting for my mom to make me soup because it's like that's the thing that like I feel like most like ethnic parents do is that they make soup when it's fucking hot.
It is 101 outside, and what does my Latina mother decide to do? Caldo de res.
Oh
I
yeah,
hate caldo de res so much, and it's not because it tastes just fine, right? It's because I associate it with a hot day. That's why I hate it. It's not even the taste. Like if you give me that during the winter, I'm good.
oh yeah, delicacy like main dishes over the summer: caldo de res, caldo de pollo, pozole.
Menudo.
I don't,
Oh,
yeah,
menudo.
we don't make that one, but yeah,
You
I'm
guys
just
make pozole, no?
we do pozole, yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's like I don't know. In my mom's mind, she's like, sometimes I just want really hot things. Like it'll just like you get to sweat it out and you feel better afterwards. And then the soup pot lasts the entire week.
Mhm.
So I don't have to cook for an entire week.
Because you don't make a small pot, right? You have to feed a village, so you make a gigantic vat. So that's when we pull out the tamales olla, right? That's the thing that where we make the tamales at the end of the year, and that's where we make our soups and our caldos. Is your
Yep.
mom going to make caldo de res or something like that?
Me? No, like she doesn't feel like cooking right now. She works in a nursing facility and so like right now she's working with some
Do you
positive.
freeze the extras for later? That's what the Italians do.
We don't like we usually just finish the soup right
Oh, okay.
within that week or week and a half. But we've had like soup like she's made like caldo de res like a couple times and a couple times it's spoiled and so like I think
Oh,
like it's one of those things where you have to eat really quickly otherwise it's going to spoil.
right.
And so like she's been really frustrated because it's happened to her like a couple of times. She's like, I don't understand what's happening. And I think it's just like maybe the temperature in the kitchen is just too hot and I'll just like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just
Italians and Croatians love to freeze their soups. They make a big soup and their pasta sauces. We'll make a huge vat and then like put it into serving sizes and then freeze them all. And then you just have quick dinners.
That's what I was gonna tell you. That's one of the things that your mom and you can do is stick it in once it's cold, stick it in a plastic container and stuff it in the freezer, and it'll last.
okay. Yeah, that's good
Now you
advice.
just reheat it.
Yeah, we'll probably do that. I'll tell my mom. Like, look at us sharing cooking secrets.
Millennials can't cook.
Brennifry, more like ethnic recipes with Brennifry.
Maybe that's what our blog should have been about.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, we are in the process of a name change, so we have that going.
I don't think I said we were brewing tea with Brennifry today. Sorry guys, we're Quarantime with Brennifry. That's who we are. Sorry for forgetting.
It's a re-recording, guys. So sorry if we're just kind of
Re-recording. I got excited.
Anyway,
We just don't want to lie to you, so.
yes, we don't want to lie. Anyways, so as this is a re-recording, we want to hit on the points that we hit during our first recording, but obviously we can't recapture that magic. So we're going to do the best that we can. I think that we'll still create some lovely magic here and we'll go and geek out and have these lovely moments and authentic moments, but we won't capture what we originally lost. So in that vein, our what was planned for that week was to have a discussion on Buffy, Buffy the series, the character, the fandom, and then have that segue into our discussion about Buffy the comic, which recently came out through Boom Studios. So as you can tell, we're huge Boom Studio fans here. I think the one that you must have watched before if you're keeping up with us, we talked about the Pink Ranger. So we were deliberate in that there is a connection between the Pink Ranger and Buffy. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. But I want to start us off with, how did we get into Buffy the Vampire Slayer series, the TV show? When, why, how? So I'm going to toss it to you guys.
So I think I was the first to really and not discover Buffy, but to get invested in a really unhealthy way. And when I say unhealthy, I just mean I was obsessed with the show, right? I binged the show before binging was a thing. And I don't mean that to say like, oh, look at all these other people. No, it was more like I would buy the DVD box sets. So I would save my allowance up for weeks so that I could afford, because this is back when like TV on DVD was somewhere between $30 to $40. And I come from a low income family. So it wasn't like I had a lot of money to splurge on these things. So when I was able to get enough money for the box set, I would run to the store or get it on Amazon. Well, actually, I would have to beg to be able to use the debit card so that I could buy it on Amazon. or I would have to go to the store and pray that they had the season that I was looking for. So that's how I really got into it. Initially, I was watching Buffy really on late Saturday afternoons, or was it Sundays? It might have been Sundays, like at 4, right before. It was like right after Xena, or was it before Xena? I don't know. I know Stargate SG1 was somewhere in there. It was I Love Lucy that I was watching, right? I Love Lucy came on at like 4 or 5 or something, and Buffy was on right before it. And so I came in, and it was the Inca Mummy Girl episode. I still remember that because it kind of creeped me out. I don't like horror, but that episode's a little creepy. So I was watching it, and I got really into the fact that Inca Mummy Girl looked like a Latina woman, right? And I'm like, whoa, what is this? Why is there a Latina on TV? And so, not in a bad way, I was very excited to see my people on TV, right? So I was like, okay, let's watch this. And then there was a mummy thing, and it was a little creepy. So she kind of turned out to be the villain, but she was a misunderstood villain. So that was nuanced and layered, and I really enjoyed that. So I just kept watching it. And this was season 2. And so because I kept watching it week in and week out, I think this is the first time I experienced true heartbreak. Mind you, I was like 11, 12. I don't know. I was really young. I was in middle school for sure. And that episode where Angel is all evil and he's trying to like end the world, and Buffy has to stab him, destroyed my tiny little nerd heart to a million pieces. Like, I think I would spend I was in class that week, and I would be thinking about that, and I would just get so depressed and so sad, like I had lost something, right? So it was just really, but you know how like young nerd kids are. So this is the scene. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys so that you see the scene that I'm talking about that broke my little nerd heart. You guys see that?
Aww, I remember that scene.
Yeah. She asks him to close his eyes, and then she stabs him, and then it destroyed me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And so that's kind of how I just got into Buffy. And then I met Jen, and we'd talk about it. And I know she was familiar with Buffy, but not as nerdy as I was about it. At least not initially. But yeah, that was my introduction to Buffy.
Yeah, that was great. I remember, like, you're still haunted by that scene. That's something that consistently, we've been friends for like 15 years, I think. I don't know, time flows. But I know that's something that's consistently has come up in our friendship. And like when we reminisce about old shows, we tend to and we talk about Buffy. That's something that Brenda always talks about. Like, it's always that scene. It's always that heartbreak. She's like, I can't. That is one of the times I learned about what heartbreak really meant.
But in my defense, I can talk about that death a lot better than I can talk about Joyce's death or Buffy's death. Those two deaths, I can't.
Which is a really good segue to mine. So Brenda's right. Like, I think I had the same experience with Brenda, where I was like, it was on channel 13. It was clearly syndicated. It was running on like Sundays afternoons, like right before like I Love Lucy or something. And so I always needed something to watch before I watched the like comedy hour of I Love Lucy at 5 on Channel 11 on Fox TV. And so that happened to be on, and I didn't get it. It was kind of scary, but it had a really cool theme song, but that was also kind of scary. um, and so I didn't really understand, like I would watch it, but I wasn't invested in it. And it really wasn't until I was maybe in my teens, whenever that was, that I happened to be watching, switching through channels trying to find something to watch, and I happened to come upon the live showing of the season 5 finale of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I'm going to share screen to show you. Actually, let me prepare this a little bit. All right. So this is a scene that I came onto the channel when she's giving her speech to Dawn. And I was like, what's going on? I don't even understand. I didn't have much of a backstory about how the show worked, who these characters were, but I found myself crying, like tears were pouring out of my eyes as Buffy was telling Dawn that like she loved her and that to live and that that's the greatest thing that she could do in this world. And I was just crying. And that was one of the moments where I just fell in love with the show, because if it got a non-fan, a casual viewer to cry on spot, that was an indicator of brilliant writing. I unfortunately didn't catch up to it like live, so I didn't know, because I think after that was meant as a series finale, and then it got picked up by UPN, and then it moved to Channel 13, and so I never really followed afterwards with the live showing of it. But I did catch up with it later in life in college, when I was able to purchase the box sets, and I was able to watch the series from like season 1 to the season 7 finale. And so as I was watching, I fell more and more in love, and this is still one of the scenes that is one of my favorites in the series. This just scene of Buffy just jumping into the abyss and just giving her life over to save her friends, the world. So this is why I fell in love with Buffy. And then we went to college, and then we ended up in the class with Tori, and we just told Tori, you have to go watch it. Like, watch it, dude.
Let me just add though, you just shared this picture, and this is how it still affects me, right? It's 86 degrees outside, and it's even hotter in this room because I don't have a fan in here, and I got chills just looking at this thing. So I mean, I think I don't mean to have a monopoly on the nerdom, because I don't, but it's just one of those things that I think is really impactful as a series, and why it's such an important series to watch for anyone, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So then we told Tori, go watch it.
Yeah.
Basically bullied Tori into watching this.
I wanted to like go like not mention the B word because it could be triggering, but we kind of did.
I'm sorry. And I yeah, no, we did. I'm sorry. I do apologize. And I was kind about it. It was just more like peer pressure to really watch this, but you're right.
I found another B word. We badgered him to watch it.
See, that sounds more violent though, because we weren't physical about it. We were just like, you should watch it. Have you watched it?
Pretty physical about it.
Badgering. That's verbal badgering.
I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I mean,
so
we are Huffles. You're right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I after 2 years of grad school relentlessly being told, watch Buffy, watch Buffy, watch Buffy. It was on Netflix, and Brenda had, I think, texted me one day, and she was like, this is your last chance. It's only going to be on Netflix for 1 more month, so it's now or never. And I was like, challenge accepted. And she's like, I don't think you can watch all, 6 seasons, 7 seasons in a month. Like, that's a lot of Buffy. The episodes are long. And I was like, watch me. And because the key to get me to do anything is to challenge me.
And had I realized that sooner, trust me, I would have challenged you sooner.
And I zipped through them. I know a lot of people. I think Brenda and Jen might have. I don't feel like you framed it this way to me, but I know a lot of my other Buffy friends framed like, oh, just get through the first season and it gets better, I promise. But I actually like I was hooked episode one. Like I just liked it. I've always liked kind of campy, tongue in cheek, and it like hit those notes for me. Like I'm a '90s kid. I grew up with Power Rangers and Xena, and like I just like camp. Like it doesn't phase me. I guess. Like I like it. Like I like when things are kind of corny. It adds to the charm, I guess. Watched it, loved it. Like sped through season 2, sped through season 3. Got to season 4, it was a little wobbly for me. I thought about tapping out because I wasn't feeling the college thing, but I was ensured that season 5 was like immaculate in comparison, and I was like, okay, I'll get through 4 to watch 5. I think at one point I had even sent a you know, like on iPhone, like you can use the GIF keyboard. I had sent a GIF to in a group chat with us, and I think Brenda was like, "You haven't watched enough of the seasons yet to earn that GIF. That's a season 6 GIF. How dare you?"
I remember that. I don't know if I was the one who said that. It might have been Jen because
maybe it was Jen. I don't
sound
know.
as sassy. Like I'm not that sassy, but I do remember reading that. Yeah.
I feel like it was me. It was the
Yeah.
it was the gift. It was a Vampire Willow gift, and you hadn't gotten to that point. You're like, you sent that. And I'm like, this is amazing, and I'm like, you haven't watched enough to earn this yet. You don't understand the context.
Right. But I ended up loving season 5. I think that's my favorite season. I liked 6. I'm trying to like remember 6 and 7. Like I did because I watched them like so in such quick succession that they all kind of blend into one enormous season for me. So I forget what's where.
Season 6 is when she has the short hair.
Yeah, and she was like brought back from like heaven, right? And she's kind of like, hey, nani nani for a minute, and like Robo Buffy is trying to be Buffy, but she like.
It's also the season with the musical.
Okay, I liked the musical.
Season 7 is like fallout of Willow being dark, and then also Baby Slayers.
I didn't like the Baby Slayers one bit. I had a lot of issues with them, just as people. They
particularly with Kennedy.
Yeah, like Felicia Day's excuse because I love her and she can do no wrong. But the rest of them, I have issue with. But no, I loved it. I ended up loving it so much, which prompted me to read the original comic series that came right after as a continuation, which is season 8, which I did not like. I think I read the 8th volume and I was just like, nope, not for me, and put that down. Yeah, that was kind of
I think we all had like mixed feelings about it going into what turned out to be like 8, 9, 10, 12 like comics with Dark Horse. I think we all have mixed feelings about that.
I was initially really excited though. I was really happy.
I loved it so much.
Yeah. And a lot of the comments were, oh, they're not going to be limited by a TV budget. They can do whatever the hell they want. This is right. And so I was really looking forward to it. And I honestly think I gave it a really good try. But it just didn't have that same magic that the original TV show had, which is one of the reasons why I really am pleasantly surprised with the Boom rendition of it.
Yeah. The Dark Horse one felt a little, and I'm not trying to like say that it's a critique on those who write fan fiction, but it felt more like fan fiction than it did an honest to God continuation of the series. I mean, I've read wonderful fan fictions, and they're fantastic, and I'm not putting down any fanfic writing creators. You're doing great work. But it didn't have like that authentic kind of canonical feel. Like everything just felt kind of like out of nowhere and just like,
the pacing was definitely a little off, I think. I don't know that it felt fan fiction for me. It felt more like they're going in a little more mature and darker route, right? So
I think like,
and a lot of that, you saw a lot of those missteps, right, with the individual characters and some of the pacing, particularly with the writing. And I think part of it was they were still trying to figure out the genre, right? It felt out of place and it felt rushed and then really slow in other places. So I think that really inhibited my enjoyment of the series. That said, I did stick with it for quite longer than I wish I had.
You have the omnibus, do you not? I feel like I recall you having.
Yeah, I have a few of the volumes of this. Like, I'm pretty sure I have all of season 8. But after that, I just dropped off.
Yeah, I think that, it's funny because I think Joss Whedon was behind the like the Dark Horse comics. Like I remember reading an interview where he wrote like where one of the writers at the time for the comics said that Joss had left behind like a Bible, a Buffy Bible, where he had outlined character arcs and like the overall like scheme of the story. And I know he was involved for like at least the first and he and the some prolific writers from the Buffy series were involved in some of the first issues in the first, maybe even the first season in the comic book version. So it wasn't that we had like outside writers coming in and taking over. It was very much like still in-house. Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting that we're having these but we all had these mixed reactions to it, where we're talking about pacing, right? We're talking about like lack of like odd character development and maybe odd story development, given that these are the original writers. But I do think that in a way, you're right, Brenda, they're still figuring out the genre, which is still, I think, even stranger, because I think Joss Whedon had success in relaunching Astonishing X-Men, because his run was really good for the first like 3 volumes. So it's really interesting to hear that we all kind of had that same mixed reaction.
And some of my favorite writers, comic book writers, are actually involved in the series, because I know at some point Brian K. Vaughan was involved with the title. And I love Brian K. Vaughan's work. But yeah, there's just something about the comic book that it didn't hit the right note for me. And yeah, a lot of it is the lack of understanding. Like, it's difficult, right, to adapt from one medium to another, because genre-wise they're still kind of sticking to the same horror framework, but at the same time dialogue and movements are much more important when you're marrying them to the page, right? Because you have to stick to what micro movements is it that you want to focus on, right? With Sarah Michelle Gellar on TV, she was very good at the micro expressions, right? And I think Jen mentioned this a few times, that she plays those nuances, those really small moments where you see the hurt, the pain, or even the joy on her face, and they light up on camera. And that's not something that the artists were necessarily able to capture as well in the original season 8 comic book, I think, which is why I really enjoyed this one.
Right. Like the drawing style was very inconsistent in the Dark Horse iteration. Mm-hmm. And I think also, yes, to Sarah Michelle Gellar's ability to display and demonstrate those micro expressions, like that's one of the reasons why the season 7, I know Tori doesn't like the season 7 finale, but I like it because it's an open ending finale where like there's a slight hope that there is hope that is conveyed through Sarah's like choice to do like a half smile, right? There's just so much said in that moment, and that facial expression that was just really beautiful. But I think one of the detriments to the comic series and to see, like, they were so annoying in season 7, and then I think because they took up the majority of the presence in season 8, that's why we didn't like it as well, right? Like suddenly it became not the Scooby Gang against the world, it became this like this company and this huge corporation of slayers who, one, didn't have appreciation for their legacy, and 2, were just like super annoying and just minimized, I think, Buffy's impact and influence, because now they were all like, I have my own opinions and I'm the best.
So I might say something a little controversial here, but it felt, when the Baby Slayers came on and we had about 2 seasons, 2 very obnoxious seasons of Dawn, it felt like we injected season 7 with a bunch of mini Dawns, right? And I really found Dawn obnoxious. I didn't like her. And then I kind of grew to appreciate her. Sibling thing. I don't have any siblings, so watching that was just like, oh, who's this annoying kid, right? But eventually I started to appreciate her until she kicked Buffy out in season 7. And I have not, I mean, it's how many years later and I still have not forgiven her for that. So, and here's the thing, I'm sure, and I don't know how other cultures deal with family, right? But in Latino families particularly, families for life, you don't get to run away from that, right? And that has a lot of toxic elements to it, right? And so when I first saw that, I was so tied to that idea, right? And so it hurt me on a visceral level, I think, because I just didn't like, how do you kick out a family member, right? And even that, again, it's very different from family to family. But for me, it was very much ingrained. So when I saw Dawn do that, I didn't get it, and it frustrated me and it angered me. I've learned now to I've grown and matured, I guess. And I've forgiven her a little bit for it, but there are other things that it's just like, but you were annoying. But again, she was a 14-year-old girl. I need to cut her a lot more slack than I do. She deserves that, I think. I go back and forth. I'm trying. I'm really trying to grow, but growth is
So if you guys didn't know, Brenda really hates Dawn.
I do.
Dawn can't help it. Her brain is full of key.
It's all key.
It's
all key.
Think.
All key.
You know what? I dislike Dawn. I don't think I hate her anymore. I dislike her. Yeah. I hate Kennedy. Kennedy, I don't like.
Oh, I hate Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
Sarah.
I'm like, you're not Tara. I'm sorry. Go away. You're just not Tara.
No one's Tara.
No, absolutely not.
Tara.
Tara was amazing. Even Willow did not deserve Tara after season 6.
No one on that show deserves Tara, honestly.
That's why Joss Whedon took her away from us.
That's another death I can't talk about, okay? See, like, I don't mind losing Angel. I can still talk about that because it's just a boy, whatever. But I can't.
I do think like the show did a really good job, and I think we talked about this in our last original recording, but I think the show did a really nice job of like handling grief and the stages of grief and processing death. And there were just so many episodes that are very beautifully rendered that talk about that, right? The grief that comes out of it, and taking these very big, like not maybe big, but these everyday like issues like addiction, sickness in the family, and death, and just using bigger themes and then infusing them in this supernatural world. They did a really nice job of handling that and writing for that.
Joss Whedon can write his way around a metaphor really well.
Yeah, and I mean, what we had talked about in the previous recording of this that I loved so much was seeing Buffy, her mom, she comes home to her mother and she's dead and she can't do anything. Like, she has all of this power, right? She has the Slayer, she can punch through walls, she can beat all kinds of big bats, she can go toe to toe with Glory, but she can't save her mom from having a stroke, and she just breaks down and cries, and then has to drop out of school and take care of her sister. And just like the things that you do for your family, right? Like she has to like take her job at the chicken place or whatever it was, like with that really creepy episode.
Yeah, I think that doesn't happen till season 6, though.
Yeah, that's like one of the weirdest and grossest episodes ever.
I mean, and there's like a handful of episodes that I just can't watch. That one, like the symbiote episode with the chicken and You're Bad. Those are just bad episodes.
I also can't watch the Ted episode.
Oh yeah.
I don't recall that one.
The one where Joyce is with a new man and it turns out to be like a cyborg or like a robot.
Oh yeah, and he's like really like abusive, right?
Yeah, so it's like
yeah. I didn't like that one either.
Yeah, I didn't like that one. But I think that like that's what I really enjoyed about the show, right? It's even though Buffy does have all of these powers and can do all of these amazing things, it doesn't stop her from not living in the world as a normal human being, right? She still has like the fallout of Joyce's death doesn't result in suddenly Buffy gets to continue living her life as is. Like Tori said, she has to drop out. Like she has
Right.
to become a parent to her annoying key sister, right?
Who
um,
doesn't want to see her as a parental figure?
right. She has to learn how to provide. When she dies and comes back to life, it's not like any of that. And I remember there was that episode or that exchange between Willow and Buffy where like Willow's like, so there was still a lot of debt that was left over from like from the from the medical bills, and also like you still owe mortgage on this house. Like your mom's insurance took care of a lot of things. She prepared really well, but you still have to pay the mortgage, you still have to pay for these things for Dawn, and you still have to like pay these leftover loans. And so, and obviously that adds to Buffy's depression. But I thought that was a really good example of like life doesn't stop just because you have these tragic events, which is horrible, right? But for a fantasy supernatural show, it's very much still connected with like everyday living, which is what I really appreciated. Like Buffy in her college years, I can't watch season 4 because it's triggering, because I felt like they portrayed isolation really well. Like how you feel isolated on your first day, how you feel like you don't belong. If Buffy can feel that, like I felt that, and if Buffy can feel that, anyone can feel that, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think the writers
flourishing.
Yeah.
The writers on the series did a really good job of tracing what it means to be a young adult, right?
Mhm.
All the struggles of everything that's happening in high school, right? And then the culture shock of suddenly, oh, you're not a baby anymore. You're an adult. You got to figure out this college thing. Oh, and it's on you. No one's going to help you. You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then, oh, here's a death of a parent because that shit happens, right? Oh, and here's a sacrifice that the world is demanding of you right now.
It's your duty.
It's your duty.
Your destiny.
And then when you thought you're finally gonna rest, nope, we're gonna yank you out of that and push you in through this. And I think that's one of those things that Buffy did such a good job of, like the writers did, of encapsulating, is that life is gonna beat you up constantly, relentlessly, and continuously, because no matter what you learn, there's something else coming up, and after that there's going to be another thing and another thing. That's the only assurance, that and death, right? Those are the two things that you're going to get. And I think that's one of the reasons why I appreciate the show so much, right? Because part of her suffering was our suffering, right? And when you were talking about grief, Jen, it struck me because, and we've made this joke before, right, that I can talk about Angel's death, but I can't talk about all the other ones, right, because I still haven't dealt with that grief. But in that episode, in The Gift, you see Buffy having a conversation with Giles, and he's telling her, you saved the world before, you're going to do it again, right? And again, that's so loaded and so messed up. Why is the weight of the world on this girl's shoulders? But she tells him, I killed Angel. I loved him so much. I was strong back then. I can't do that again, right? Because she thinks she has to kill her sister, right? Because that's the only way to save the world at this point. And she just lost her mom. Now she's going to lose her sister as well. The profound sense of loss that she feels, right? And I think we all do this, right? That sense of looking back and romanticizing the past, right? Like I actually don't miss my 8th grade self at all, right? And Jen and I joke about this all the time because that bitch was a mess, right? And even my high school self was a total mess, right? But there's some elements of my past that I do miss, right? I miss not having so many responsibilities, right? I miss just being able to sit in front of the TV and channel surf just for shits and giggles, right? So I think when she says that and she tells Giles, I was strong back then, I was stronger back then, there's that sense of romanticizing, right? And hoping, oh, that version of me was better. But no, that version of Buffy was not better. What she lost initially was not family, right? That was like her first love. And I think a lot of us have that when we have our first love, where we're like, oh, this is perfect and this is beautiful, I can't live without this person, right? And losing that she survived that, right? And I think it shows that every person will survive losing their first love, because we all will go through that, right? At some point, in some way, shape, or form, whether that's a romantic love or a friendship love, like some kind of heartbreak will come from that. But then you move on, and then you have these other losses, right? And so the loss of a parent is deep and cutting and really present, right? And especially given our world right now, for a lot of us, it feels like a real threat, right? And so, like, even thinking about it now is difficult. And then add that the loss of a sibling, who, for her, you know, whether the monks made her or not, Dawn is a real person to her, and she's about to go in there and maybe have to kill her, right? And so that, I don't know, I think honestly, the Buffy that ends up jumping off the thing, I think, is a lot stronger than the Buffy who has to stab Angel. And it's one of those things where it's hard and it's heartbreaking. And it's not heartbreaking for the loss, it's heartbreaking to have to make these decisions, right? And I think we often characterize heartbreak as, oh, the loss of this person. But I think oftentimes it's, we have to make that choice to say no to this person, to lose that person, or in some cases, it's completely out of our hands. And that loss of control can be very jarring, I think. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult for me to talk about like episodes like The Body or The Gift, or even when Tara passed, right? Those are just senseless and awful. And I'm gonna start crying, so I'm gonna stop talking.
Oh, wow. You said such an eloquent like speech there, and like
Yeah.
dialogue. Like I think Tori and I are just like, keep talking.
Right? I'm like, I
Sorry.
don't have a follow-up.
I'm sorry. I've thought about this a lot. I like Buffy a little bit. A little nerdy about it.
I'm like, keep on going. Can you teach us more?
So like we said last episode, if I'm the one who's super obsessed with Power Rangers, Brenda is the one that is super obsessed with Buffy. Like, so
Yeah.
like she knows everything.
Oh yeah. So this is definitely like her wheelhouse. We are just here for the ride.
Yeah, we're here because he told us watch this or else.
Right. Exactly.
And then we ended up liking it too.
Yes. Yes. No, but I think you bring up you brought up really great points in terms of just how like the show handles Buffy's maturity into a young woman, right? It's the compounding of loss definitely is measured differently the more the older that she gets, right? And so certain things, I love how you said it's not necessarily the loss or the aftermath that hits a certain individual the hardest. It's a decision, whether intentional or out of our hands, that can wreak more havoc than not, right? So you definitely see that with Buffy. Like I think, that's why that line in season 7 when she's talking is so apt, right? I'm not cookies yet. I'm still baking, right?
Yeah.
It's so it's funny and it's cute and so Whedon-esque in its script, right? But it's so true. Like she's still growing. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know. I think Brenda went away. Don't cry.
Sorry. I clicked on the stop video thing accidentally.
Okay. But yeah, I think that like that's why that line is so apt at that ending. Is like she's not who she is yet, right? Like she's not at her full potential yet. She's going to grow into that person. And I think that's why that line is so apt and so apt for the series as well. It's definitely a coming of age story that it has its incredible highs and its incredible lows.
Right.
So on that note, I think this is a really good time to maybe segue into talking about Boom and like what they did with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I'm going to screen share as Brenda talks a little bit about why she badgered us into reading this.
Okay, so I badgered you into watching the series. The comic book, I was just, oh look, this is the thing. So here's what happened. So when this comic book was announced, all of us were already into Buffy, but we were starting to get really into Boom. Tori and I did our first co-purchase of Backstagers together, right? And then Jen was reading Power Rangers and a few other titles produced by Boom. And one of the things that our conversations were always circling around, you know what? I'm really happy with what Boom is producing.
Yeah.
And so we all love Buffy and we were all loving Boom. And then this announcement came and we were all intrigued.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what happened. Oh yeah. Jen and I were at Barnes and Noble back like a year ago. I don't know. Back when we were allowed to be outside. We were just browsing through Barnes and Noble, and I saw or maybe Jen saw it. I don't know. One of us saw it and pointed it out. I think Jen saw it, and she's like, "Oh, look at this!" Right? And then when I picked it up, I'm like, "Oh wait, it's already out. It's a Boom thing that we were talking about." And so I almost bought it, but I have no space, right? So I decided it's cheaper online. I can get the Comixology version at some point when it's on sale or something, because I am cheap and frugal. So I just kind of waited, and at one point I just felt like reading Buffy, so I just bought it on an impulse, and I started reading it, and I really enjoyed it. And then I started telling them about it, but I did not pressure them into reading this book. I do want that to be clear. I don't think.
After being pressured, I was really happy that I read it.
I might have dropped some hints about the things that happened in the book that I actually thought each one of them would be into.
So I had while I was very curious and genuinely interested in Boom Buffy, I wasn't sure I either hadn't found out or they hadn't made it clear in the marketing if it was a continuation or a relaunch. And I didn't know because I kind of like we had said previously, I wasn't really Dark Horse went. So I had my reservations, but I ended up loving it, the Boom version. I wanted to say, as we kind of found more out about Boom and read more Boom stuff as a group, we quickly realized that Boom was, in my opinion, one of the best comic book companies putting out comic books about minorities, whether that's religious, sexual orientation, gender identity, etc., which I think is just phenomenal. But yeah, so I definitely recommend for anyone who's looking for things within those spaces.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that I think we all share in common is just our love for Boom Comics. A lot, like I think all three of us can agree that it's one of the most diverse. It's one of the companies that is putting out one of the more diverse storylines, and even like cutest storylines as well. Like they're really well told stories, and authors, you definitely feel like the love the authors have for the characters and for the stories that they're telling. Like a lot of the times, if like with other companies, it feels like they're going for an aesthetic, they're going for a story, they're going for a certain tone with their comics, right? And I think, while I do think that Boom does have an aesthetic and a tone that they're trying to hit, I do think that these stories that they're telling are very diverse and can be enjoyed by many different age groups.
Yeah, and I think part of it is because they're not actually holding so tightly to that aesthetic, Jen. Because I think you're right. There's definitely an established aesthetic, but I feel like they're willing to go outside of that aesthetic if the story is good.
Right. No, I agree. And so we all came to that booth and we all bought something. So no, I just teased Brenda. I actually did pick up this comic on my own. I just didn't read it until Brenda badgered us into reading it.
That word again.
Jen and I are really bad about buying every comic book on every single sale and then not reading them.
Yeah, so I think I am the most prolific reader among the three in terms of just like having just a really large collection and reading a lot. Not to say that you guys don't read a lot. I just think I read on top of you guys. And so I had this in my collection.
Very Ravenclaw way of saying she reads circles around Tori and I.
That's not true.
We're couples. We have to like digest it for a couple weeks after before we can start something new.
It's taking me years to get over different character deaths. Come on.
I'm just like, whatever. Let's keep going now.
Next book.
Yeah. And so I had this in my list for a while, and I was recommended by Brendan to read it, and so I picked it up. One of the first things that really called out to me was the aesthetic of this book. Like Tori said, the marketing wasn't really clear as to what this was, if this was a reboot, if this was a continuation, if this was a relaunch. So I wasn't too sure, and I didn't really necessarily want to reinvest in something that was just going to be a retelling of something I had already watched. But I kind of started reading a little bit here and there about it, but what really pulled me was the aesthetic of this comic. Like I really love the neon colors, and when I opened the book, like the artwork is just there, like the art style, the drawings are really consistent, something that is very much lacking in the season 8 continuation in comic book form. Like this one, while it's not elaborate, it's not an incredible photorealistic rendition of the cast. They do a really good job of like making the cast resemble, the drawings resemble the cast in a very two-dimensional way, right? And so the art is really consistent, the tone is really interesting, and I think it does a really neat job of rebooting the story. So if you follow me on Goodreads, you might not, I gave this like a 3.5, 5 stars, because I think while I did enjoy the story, I did think that some things were a bit plotting in the story. So I think that the pacing might not always have been there. But I do think that this is a worthy relaunch.
Sorry, did I jump the gun? Sorry,
No.
I was sharing.
No, go for it. So
No,
what are
you were
you sharing?
talking about the aesthetic. That's why I pulled this one up.
Oh, okay.
So like Jen was mentioning, one of the things that this book did really well was capture the looks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jen, do you want to talk about the looks?
Yeah. So Brenda is just sharing with us a page from the comic where she is meeting Robin. So Robin came onto the show in season 7, and he was a full-blown adult. He is the child of a former Slayer, but he was the high school principal. And he was a full-blown adult that like Buffy's like, wow, like you should be like goals for me. And what the series does really well, so the series does a really good job of relaunching the series, but it sort of takes place in an alternate universe. So it takes all the character development that was finished out in the series and starts with that. So, you have a Willow that's no longer shy and just a mouse in the background. She is now fully embracing her queer self. She's embracing her witch and goth self aesthetic, and she has that confidence right off the bat. And
she's
so
already in a romantic relationship from page 1.
She's already in a romantic relationship with someone else in the story. It's not Tara. Spoiler alert.
New character. I've never heard
But there's no Oz.
Right. There's no Oz. Of that.
Yes.
So one of the things they also did was they de-aged Robin, and Robin now is part of Buffy's high school experience. So what Brenda's showing us on the screen here is Buffy and Robin meeting for the first time on the track field. He has a broken arm in a cast, and she had just finished running like a 3 mile in 2 seconds, and so she's pretending to be exhausted, and they're just sitting and meeting each other for the first time on the bleachers. And what was really nice about this scene was that like Buffy, there's this side profile of Buffy with a very much seen and very much recognized like stare from like Sarah Michelle Gellar. Like she has these like nice like side stares that she does in the show. Like that's what the artist was able to capture on this page.
Yeah. Sorry, there's like a delay. I actually zoomed in on my iPad for it, but Zoom is not capturing that zoom in. Ironic, if you ask me. Which is funny because Buffy is all about irony. So, but yeah, that side profile, right? Those are the micro expressions that Jen was mentioning earlier. that this book does really a good job of capturing, right? It's those like small moments where Sarah Michelle Gellar would like side eye someone, or maybe just kind of look a little confused or perplexed, right? Those are part of what made Buffy such a great show, because they added a humanness but also a humor to the series that I think this book does a really good job of doing, of like capturing, right, in a way that season 8 just didn't quite do. So that was something that I do appreciate from this series. The one thing, sorry, I'll stop sharing this right now. The one thing I do appreciate about that page that we were just looking at is that when you see Robin, he's just a kid, right? He's just a kid. We don't know anything about him. In the series, he was the son of a former Slayer who Spike killed. So there was like a whole thing with like Spike and all of them. So it was intense. But here, you just get to see him a little light. You actually do find out that Robin's always been a mysterious character, and you do actually find out there's a little more mystery to him in the second book. But in this book, he's just kind of chill. He's just like her potential love interest, and he's just a guy, right? And they're having a nice conversation. He's clearly athletic, but his arm is a little broken, so he can't actually run or participate in sports. So he's just chilling, and they're having a nice time. I don't know. I like that. It's part of like the lightness of youth, right? Ooh, I felt ancient saying that. Excuse me.
On that note, like what I really like was this scene right here. I think you might see like some background images, guys. So what I really liked was this opening scene. It's when Buffy's working at this like the chicken shack, and she ends up saving the day and saving Willow and Xander from a vampire attack, and they have this exchange between each other. And this is the first time that Buffy meets Xander and Willow officially. And this is what I was talking about. Like, you see Willow just immediately, like her season 4 self, right? Confident, sparkly. She's wearing a black t-shirt crop shirt. She's wearing fishnet stockings, black shorts on top of it, and like a sweater tied around it, like her, and a choker. Like, she's total aesthetic right now. Xander is Xander. I don't think he like changes much aesthetically. Maybe he might be his season 6, 7 self, where he's a little bit more like post-construction, right, guy. Because I think high school Xander was wearing a lot of Hawaiian shirts back then. Definitely not wearing that. He's wearing like a really nice like shirt over his long sleeve or his t-shirt. And so this is one of the first moments you see the gang. But what I really appreciated from this moment was just how confident Willow was. She was the one to initiate the conversation. And if you watch the series, you have to understand just how monumental that is, because Willow was super shy and super conservative in the first 3 seasons. She had long hair. She had like this Catholic uniform that even though she was Jewish, which was really funny, but she had kind of this like Catholic uniform going for her every day, with the like fuzzy shirts and stuff. And she does start coming out of her shell, but only afterwards. So this is a really nice moment that I liked from this comic book series. Mm-hmm. Is there something else that, like, I think, is there another scene, I think, Brenda, you had talked about in the previous session, like Drusilla and how she looks in this series now?
So Drew is one of the main villains in season 2, but then she keeps coming back quite a few times during the series. And so one of the things that they ended up doing in this is something that I really enjoyed. Sorry, taking me a minute. In the original series, you had Spike and Drusilla kind of burst into town, and they were like these crazy nuts in love that wanted to destroy Sunnydale and the world, and they were going to do it. And so you had this really interesting love story between the two, right? They're insane and crazy, but they totally are into each other. And initially, it kind of felt like Spike was the leader, right? Like, he's the alpha male, and he's kind of
the show
leading the
itself,
charge. And yeah, and then he has his accident. He ends up in a wheelchair, and so then Drusilla becomes like the alpha, but not so fast because then Angel becomes evil, and so he becomes the alpha. And so one of the things, and it was fine. Drusilla was insane, and they mention it in the series, but she wasn't as pronounced a figure as she is in the comic book. And so in this graphic novel, one of the things that I really enjoy is the fact that right off the bat, you know Drusilla's in charge. She's the one who is running the show. And while Spike looks dangerous, because there's definitely a scene where he just visually looks threatening, here she's calling the shots. It's very clear that she's the one running the show. And part of what I love about this is just like, look at this power suit that they have her in, right? She's in all white. Ooh, sorry. She's in all white, and she is very gothic, right? And feminine, but still in charge. Her hair is up, but kind of like in a loose bun. I don't know. I just love that this captures both the power and femininity that Drusilla embodies, while also really capturing that crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because she is evil, relentless, and she has no qualms about walking into this magic shop and kind of destroying Anya's things, which actually backfires, right, like almost immediately. But that's actually another addition that I really enjoy about this is Anya's in here from the very beginning, right? Anya actually didn't come onto the show till maybe season 3. Might have been season 2. I don't know. I don't remember. But she was in the show, and so now she's running the magic shop. And initially she only ran the magic shop like in season 5, maybe 4. Yeah, season 5.
Yeah. She inherits it, right, in the show?
Well, no, because it's Giles. Giles
Oh,
buys it.
got it.
Yeah, and so she's just running it, and she's really into money, right? And so here she's actually the one running things, right? She's just right. She has all. Yeah, and so she's actually the one who gave. Sorry, let me. So right here, this is one of Anya's first introductions in the book, where you find out that she's the one who actually gave the amulet to vampires, and so that amulet makes vampires impervious to being killed or being staked, essentially. And so she just wanted to try it and see if it worked. As soon as like the badass vampire walks in, that's him right here. He's like, oh, I'm a beast, I'm better than a man. She's like, oh, that's cute, honey. And so she rips away the amulet that you see down here, and clearly he falls apart. And so it's just Anya being Anya, right? She was a former demon. And so it's really nice just to see Anya on here. Obviously, that image of the melting vampire is not a pretty image, and it actually feels a little counter to Boom. But I think it's a nice addition, just given that fact that Anya's here, right? And along with Drusilla, who I really just love as a character.
Yeah. So I definitely agree that it was really nice to see Drusilla in a role that imagined as in a role that isn't as infantile anymore. Like she's still crazy. Like that's part of Drusilla, is that she's crazy, right? And she definitely is more terror inducing than I think she gets a lot of credit for. But I think that was softened because she always had like this like infantile kind of way about her, right? And so
that Lolita feel that was a little disturbing.
Yeah, and I think that kind of got cleared up when she became more herself and her brain was put back together, I think. But I think starting off with her just being very like just terrifying and maybe even more like Angelus than Angelus is a smart move. And I liked what they did there. I also enjoyed that Anya just got to be like Anya right off the bat. Like she's working for the law firm from the Angel series, Wolfman and Hart, right? Yeah. And so like I thought that was such a good fit. Like of course she'd be working for them. Like they're all for profit as well. Like yeah, that's a great fit. So I really enjoyed that too. And I think one of the revamps too that I enjoyed was this one. And so I enjoyed this like revamp. Again, it going back to like, you know, Willow, like and how we mentioned she was already in a relationship. She's in a stable, loving relationship, it seems. But we also get Cordy again, and we get Cordy with this like these nice like ombre kind of highlights in her hair, and she's like running for class president as she would, but she's super preppy in this and super nice and optimistic, which is kind of a nice change. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, she was that before, but I think she doesn't come in with that antagonism or mean girl aesthetic that she had in the earlier seasons, and she's a little softer, like season 3 soft, right?
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that, and I think they have a really nice setup with like Spike, and I think Brenda has that screenshot that we can share, because I know Tori had like a lot of feelings about Spike and Cordelia meeting in the woods.
I actually don't have that screenshot, but go ahead, Tori. Sorry.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about Brenda actually mentioned this when we filmed last time was that in both renditions, the show and the comic, Cordelia is actually quite smart, and the show never really played up that she was like really smart, and this relaunch does. It plays up that she is really smart. And as we've talked about in our group discussions, like we said, I do agree with Brenda and Jen that she does lack some bites. Like I do like Mike Cordy being like, I don't understand why she's making this all about herself. Like I was worried about me when I hit her with my car, and she was trying to make it about her leg. You know, like I love me some of that Cordy too, but yeah. Oh, I love this scene so much.
This is the scene where we first see Spike, and this is the scene I was referencing earlier where he kind of looks a little menacing. And so you'll notice the pages are broken up into very traditional panels, right? You have the top where you can see it's a little slanted, so it looks like you're kind of falling into a vortex, right? As Cordelia is running into the dark forest, right, away from the light, quite literally.
Yep.
And she's following her balloon because she was doing some pep rally prep or something for her school. And so she was holding these balloons that she was going to use, and one of them just kind of flies away. And so she runs into the really dark forest, which anyone who is familiar with literary tropes knows you don't do that as a young woman, right? You stay away from the dark forest.
Trying to save the
And
sea
so, so who picks up the balloon but Spike, and Spike hands her the balloon, right? And so the entire time you see them having this conversation, and Cordelia is side of the panel is very bright and happy. You can see my zooming capabilities are not working again, but like on her side you have a lot of warm colors, a lot of oranginess, and then on his side very dark. And I think her ombre hair is kind of highlighted by that, right? In a really nice way. But everything about Spike is very dark and dreary and very ominous, right? And so you have one of these moments where I think Jen mentioned earlier, it's a little uneven, right? The pacing is weird. Series Spike would have bitten Cordelia, right? At least in season 2, he would have bitten her, left her for dead there. And in this, sorry, my page isn't flipping. In this series, they have a nice conversation, but it's just a little awkward, right? They just talk about the balloons and being in the woods, and then she walks away, right? Like he doesn't even.
It was one of the scenes where it was oddly placed. Like, where did the scene come from? It came out of almost nowhere. There was not a lot of lead up to the scene, but it was a weird introduction to like Spike as well. And it's interesting how the series, like at least is pairing these two together as their first encounter. I definitely agree with like your comments earlier. Like I said, like this series really does take every like character development that happened in the series and just starts with that. And so here you have a very soft Spike, I would say. Like Brenda's right. Like season 2, season 1, Spike would have been Cordelia, and she would have been a vampire, right? But you see a lot of hesitance with Spike in the series, and a lot of hesitance to do evil. And
yeah, I have a question actually, because I didn't watch Angel.
Mhm.
Do they have any type of relationship via? Okay, yeah, I wasn't. Brenda shaking her head no for those on the podcast.
Yeah. Actually, Spike does come on Angel.
Okay.
After Buffy ended, the actor went on to star in Angel. But by the time he was on Angel, Charisma Carpenter had been let go, and that actually has its own backstage drama attached to it. And one of those not so feminist moments of Joss Whedon's career, I think. You can read up online about that, as I have. Again,
but I think Charisma and James do have like really big love for one another, because they've gone on to like do things together. So they were on Supernatural for an episode as a couple. Yeah. And so there is a lot of love between these two actors, actually.
They have a great working relationship as far as I can tell. And even on Angel, I think Spike might have come on once or twice when he was still evil. I don't remember. I watched Angel, but not with the same fervor that I watched Buffy. But you're right, Jen. They definitely have a great working relationship.
Yeah, and I love the colors in these scenes, right? Which is kind of Cordy being in like the dusk while Spike is right at the edge, and I think that speaks really true to where he ends in the show and where we're starting him now, because that color leads me to kind of metaphorically believe that he might not be entirely evil if he's getting that close to the light, if you will, or if he's gonna end up having this like redemption arc, and Cordelia seems to be kind of falling for him, and whatever that.
Yeah. So that's like kind of a scene in the comic, is that there's this intimation that like it's an overt intimation that like Cordelia is into Spike, but like an intimation
at the end.
Yeah, like there's an intimation of like from the author, like maybe foreshadowing that this is a couple that she's gonna probably explore, and I'm just a little shook by that.
Well, in the original show, there was a moment where Buffy and Cordelia were basically fighting for Angel's attention. And that didn't go anywhere, right? It was Angel's very much, I'm like, who's Cordelia, right? So I think this is an interesting twist on that initial trajectory, if you will. I'm with you. I don't know how I feel about that. But I want to see it.
I think that's part of because we don't really know where Spike is yet in his development. Like we don't, because we know how crazy Spike can be, but we also have seen a kind of more compassionate side of Spike, and we don't know kind of where. Can't see them. Like we don't know what Spike we're getting, and so it's like, should I be afraid for Cordy? Is she safe? Like,
right.
Actually, one of the wonderful things about Cordelia's character too is her redemption arc is pretty awesome, right? It's pretty great. And then other stuff happened and it wasn't great, but in seeing her right now, you get to see a lot of the lighter side of her, and I really hope that we get to see more of Cordy, because I do like this version of her.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I just wanted to bring up this panel for you guys, because we were talking about Spike, and so this is an exchange later in the book between Spike and Drusilla, where they managed to lift Xander's like smartphone from him, and they're in their crypt. There's a bunch of candles around, and Drusilla wants to imitate Xander in order to trap. Want to imitate, they end up lifting Buffy's phone.
They have Buffy's phone, and she's pretending to be Buffy to catfish Xander.
Yes, exactly. That's a better explanation. And so she's like, I don't understand technology. Who knew this was gonna like take off? And like Spike is like, get off me, like I'll take care of the texting, like, right?
Get with the times. He's like texting Xander like, hey baby, you up? Like, and
I love the contrast here, though, because on the page that we were just sharing, you see like the icy blueness of Spike's eyes, and here, the complete opposite with Drew's eyes, and they're all golden and fierce. They look a little hot, like a hawk, and I'm a little scared.
What I really like too is the subversion of, because typically we expect women to be the seductress in seducing men to their doom, and Spike's like, I got this, and he's the one like texting Xander, which I really enjoyed that they kind of, because I feel like that happens a lot in like fantasy where women become like the seductors, the liars, I'm doing air quotes for all these for those that can't see me.
Like
But,
the women that Dracula uses to seduce others.
yeah.
Yeah. So I really like enjoyed the, like even the update of technology, like that's fun, right? In the series. I also enjoyed like you see like Spike being like, get off, right? Like there's this body gesture he does where he holds up his hand and takes it away and just like kind of bats Drusilla away. But even that demonstrates like a slight change in their relationship prior in comparison to the series. Like in the series, Spike was like lovesick for Drusilla. He was just like catering to her every whim and her every crazy lunacy thing. And here he almost seems really like annoyed by her and just like, I guess I'm living with you. There is almost no love lost between the two. I feel that they've lived for a long time and they've done this for a long time and they're just together, but it's not the same lovey-dovey intensity of the series. So I think that's even this, and maybe I'm misreading the pages, but I feel like this is an indication that Spike is maybe not as evil as he was in the original series and might be going towards that light at some point in this new comic series.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto some things. I definitely feel like Spike has a instead of it being infatuation, more like obedience is loyalty is the better word, right? Like he's like, oh yeah, you turned me, you're the boss, like, and I'm the next in command, and sometimes we do the hanky panky, and other times we just ignore each other.
Yeah.
I like that read. Yeah. Can we also say this cracked phone relatable?
Oh yeah. That's why you have the glass protection on your phone.
Right. Well, that's the thing that I love about this book, right? That attention to detail, because this is Buffy's phone. It's Buffy who is constantly fighting, right? Of course she would have a cracked case,
and
right?
She says something, right? Because she's like desperately looking for her phone, and she's telling Willow about it. And she's like, yeah, like I can't like tell my mom I need a new phone. And like I think there's a flashback to like Buffy talking to her mom, and she's like, what do you mean it fell in a blender? Because that was her only way of explaining how destroyed her phone was from a fight she was in.
Right. I mean, I think Buffy probably needs one of those Nokia.
The indestructible phones, yeah.
Yeah, phones, yeah.
Exactly.
Definitely. So I think one last scene that I want to share with you guys.
Is it the unicorn?
Huh?
This
Unicorn?
Yes, this is a Pegasus.
Oh, the Pegasus, that's right. Pegasus, not unicorn.
Yes.
Love the Pegasus.
Mostly because you guys love the Pegasus scene so much. I kind of want you guys to talk about it.
I love this page so much. OMFG. Do you want to start, Tori? I've talked a lot.
Yeah, so to get us into this scene, in the previous page, Buffy had just punched him because he was like destroying the town and she didn't know if he was a demon or not. And then he's like, why did you hit me? I just love you so much, Buffy. Like, you're the Slayer and it's my job. And she's like, wait, you're my Pegasus? And he's like, I don't know what that means, but I love you. And it's just like so good. Like, he's like this big hulking bat monster. And I love him and I want to be his friend. And he just wants to kill all vampires.
He just wants to help her save the world. Yeah. But see, this is another moment where you see those micro expressions captured well, right?
Even on him as well. He has a really
right. There's so much personality on the face that I really love the composition and how the artist's attention to detail, right? Because I swear I've seen SMG or Sarah Michelle Gellar make that face on Buffy at least once or twice, right? And then the life, right? Both faces that I'm ready to punch you, and the other like what? The confusion, right? And then
what?
Hamlet's thoughts. He's such a big hulking thing. Of course he's a demon, right?
Yeah.
And then he looks so sweet. You're like, oh, he's not a demon. He's her Pegasus. And so I just love this page. It's just one of those moments of humor and it's nice to know that it's not like one of the premises. Sorry, there's
It's okay.
one of the premises of this show is into every generation one Slayer is born, right? It's a Slayer is born, but whatever, one basically, right? And it's just her, and she has no support except for the Watcher, who watches and doesn't do anything, but whatever. She has her Kamazats, right?
And what I like about Kamazats as well is that he also looks like he would be evil and demonic and bad, but then he ends up being good, which is kind of paired with Spike on the previous pages, which is like kind of leading this question, like, are things what they seem, right? Like, they look this way. We are judging them from, going in from watching Buffy. You see a giant bat monster, and you say, oh yeah, that's a demon, and Buffy has to kill him. Right? You see Spike, and you're like, oh, there's a whole lot there, and we just don't know.
To his credit, he's not destroying the town. He's trying to destroy Drusilla because Drusilla's the first thing he sees, and Anya's there with him. He doesn't go after Anya. He goes after Drusilla, and then Drusilla goes into the town, and so that's why he starts destroying the town, right? And so I think it speaks to like the more the subtext of really Buffy in general, right? These metaphors are on the surface, but they mean other things, right? In this case, you have this creature that looks evil and awful, but he's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I think questioning all of those like prejudgments that we might have is a nice subtext in this scene, right? Especially when he kind of looks a little doofy, right?
Yeah.
And so sweet and sad, and I just want to pet him.
Yeah, he's so cute. That's one of like the fun things about Buffy is that you have like these giant mythical creatures crashing upon the scene every so often.
Yeah.
So it's like a really nice reminder of the world that we're inhabiting. This was cute, but I didn't obviously love it as much as you two.
I think Cordy even says something, or I think Buffy says something to Cordy like, why are you not freaking out? And she's like, this is Sunnydale. This happens all the time. That was a nice like little touch as well.
A few pages into this, after this, I don't know if you have it screenshotted, Jen, but there's a scene where Spike is wearing that amulet of invincibility, basically, right? And he's standing in front of Buffy, kind of like, come at me, bro, right? And Buffy's like ready to fight him, and so she just snatches it, right? And it's one of those like, it's very Buffy-esque, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed this book so much, because it captures a lot of the humor that the original series did in a way that the comic book tried but didn't always accomplish necessarily.
And Spike is just like, WTF, I thought you were gonna hit me. And she was like,
right?
That's not what I wanted.
He was expecting an epic battle, right? And she was like, nope.
Yep.
Well, shoot, I can't take a steak now.
Right.
I definitely think that like the series does hit like really nice moments and really nice moments for characters that will spin them into new directions, right? Which is exciting. Like, I'm excited to see where this Willow will go. I'm excited to see where like this Spike will go, this Cordelia will go. But I think there's a lot of room to grow, and I think like I feel like the author in a way isn't quite comfortable in the characters' voices yet. Like, they don't feel like her own yet. Like, she's still writing from a perspective of where I'm a fan of the show and I'm a fan of these characters. And so for me, that's why some of the story didn't like quite gel for me. And I feel like she needs like maybe a little bit more time with these characters to really flesh them out in the direction that she wants to take them.
I think that's a fair assessment, yeah.
So I'm really excited for this volume 2 when it comes out on sale, because I'm not going to buy full price.
Did it just come out, or it's about to come out?
It's already out.
It's already out. Yeah.
I remember it was about to, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and the connection between Buffy and Pink, as we go into our wrap up here, was that according to Brenda, what was it that there was a shared stunt double?
Mm-hmm. So the stunt double who did the stunts for Buffy was also the stunt double for Amy Jo Johnson on Power Rangers. And so there's actually a joke in the series, in the Buffy series, where Xander says something, oh, you're not going to walk in there and go all Pink Ranger on them. And so that was an inside joke about the stunt double being the same person.
Okay, that's cute. So
I love that.
yeah, I love that. And that's why we specifically chose to do the order that we did. Unfortunately, we lost the recording, but that's okay.
Better though.
Yeah. So hopefully you enjoyed this recording. Our next recording our official fourth recording will be on Batman, the animated series. Woo! We're going to spotlight Scott Snyder's New 52 run with Batman, which is an amazing run, and that is my wheelhouse, so we'll focus a little bit on that. But this has been really great. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation with us. We enjoy having this conversation with you guys, and we hope that you guys have a happy Saturday. Bye, guys.
Bye. Stay healthy, stay safe, hug your family. Unless, don't go to their houses though.
No.
If you live with, hug your family.
All right, bye guys.
Bye, guys.